Welcome back to another episode of the Truth to Power. Today, I'm joined by a good friend. My guest today is Darius Moore. He's a finance student at USF. Darius is also the founder of Interview for You, and he's the former CEO of Black Man Entities, LLC. Today, we'll be discussing finance, investing, and securing job opportunities as a student. Darius, would you like to say anything to the audience before we get started?
Sure. So, I've been investing into the stock markets for about 3.5 years now. It's about to be 4 years actually, which is pretty exciting because it's been a very long journey. It's a very interesting type of market. Like just looking at it from a holistic perspective now, but I say it's definitely worthwhile so far. So definitely get into investment if you haven't started already.
Well, that's what we're about to figure out. We're about to figure out how we're going to make that money. So get started. Darius, can you just start off by telling us how you even broke into finance? How did you start, this relationship with it to where you grew to pick it as your major?
Okay, yeah. So when I first started getting into finance was in 2021. Actually, no, it was 2020. So during 2020, of course, during the pandemic, a lot of the stock markets had plummeted, but I wasn't really invested at the time. I had a cousin who was actually very into cryptocurrency. So I was talking to him about it. I was wondering what it was. I had no idea what it was. It just sounded very foreign to me. So he had given me this book and it was called Day Trading 101. And it talked about just general investment, investing into stocks, investing into exchange traded funds, investing into options trading, being more of a day trader. And that was the first book that I read that really broke me into the industry. Mm-hmm. And from there, it's just YouTube videos, reading more books, and also just doing it myself. I was 15 at the time, so I couldn't open my own accounts. But fortunately, I had that same cousin who let me trade off his accounts. Mm-hmm. So I would buy little stocks here and there. And then following year, 2021, is when I actually started getting into options trading, which is the really lucrative, really big loss, big wins money. It's not necessarily just stocks.
Yeah, that's the one where people are getting up at the crack of dawn, 5 a.m. or whatever, and then trying to put in basically whether this stock is gonna go up or down, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's essentially a very simple concept of it, right? Mm-hmm. Saying, oh, this will go up or down, and some people equate it to gambling, but I think if you actually break it down in a technical analysis, mm-hmm. that you can make profit consistently, because that's a problem that 95% of day traders have, is not being consistent with the profit. Mm-hmm. And I've had my moments where I'm not consistent with profit, and I've shown my losses to people who are interested, because you got to understand both sides of it, right?
Yeah.
You have massive gains and you can have big losses, mm-hmm. but if you keep working at it and build a consistent strategy that works for you, it can be very lucrative.
Right. Yeah. So I understand that a lot of research and a general understanding of what market you're dealing in goes into this. So for people who are, starting to look into maybe trading or something like that, what would be some good ways for them to get some type of a foundational knowledge to point them in the direction to be getting more profit than losses?
Right. So first I would say is to do how I started. So I first started by paper trading. I didn't trade with real money. Mm-hmm. And psychologically, it does make a difference when you're actually working with your real money. But I'd say that the experience you get from paper trading is still just as beneficial as regular trading. Mm-hmm. And also, every trade that I would take, I have a trading journal. You could either use paper or Google document. I prefer paper because I like to write my things down.
Yeah.
But I would write down every single trade that I would take, why I took the trade, when I'd exit the trade, and whether it was profitable or not. Mm-hmm. And those were the key concepts and what helped me build out of paper trading into regular trading. But of course, once you actually start trading with your money and you see that there's a lot of money that you can make, it can lead to greed. It can lead to you making mistakes or not following your strategy because you're looking for the trade to reach a certain profit, because that's what it comes down to. And that's where the losses really come from. Mm. The losses come from the psychology.
Okay.
It comes from not sticking strictly to whatever game plan it is you have, or just seeking out more profit than what something could be worth.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is a lot of discipline.
It's a disciplined trade.
Nice. Yeah. I think that's a very good way of putting it. But kind of going backwards, I know we're talking about more of what could be a higher level concept in terms of finance, but bringing it back down to the level, level one. Right. Can you talk to me more so about just the general concept of finance, specifically the time value of money?
Okay. So with that, time value of money, you can learn that in finance. dollar today is worth more than a dollar next year, right? With inflation and just the actual cost of that dollar, right? That dollar that we have today, we can invest into bonds, we can invest into stocks. It's not just stocks. You can invest into mutual funds, you can invest into foreign exchange currency, or even in the futures markets. There's lots of ways that you can invest that dollar today to be worth more in the future than the less of the dollar it'd be worth next year.
Yes, yeah.
And that's the goal, right, with investment. We're trying to get our money to work for us, but also getting it to work for us in a way that isn't gonna hinder our day-to-day lives. Like, a lot of us are full-time workers or full-time students who may not have like large amounts of money to build like their own like passive income at the level that people think that it's gonna bring when you're just starting out. But when you're just starting out, it's really just getting that money to build and work for you and invest it into different markets, and really just getting acclimated with the markets, because those play a huge role in our economy.
Yeah, very true. And then you started kind of touching on this in terms of the student perspective. I know a lot of people who watch this, go to our school. So what would be like your go-to financial advice for college students then?
Right. So I would say to familiarize yourself with passive stocks that are giving you money. So these are blue chip and dividend stocks. These are stocks that pay you quarterly, monthly, or once a year. Like, they pay you out for owning those stocks. And you can get multiple shares of those stocks, like, as a student. So let's just say we're buying like a $10 stock, and it pays you like 12 cents a month. You can reinvest that 12 cents that you get every month back into getting more shares. And as the years go on, you're going to have more shares of that stock that are going to feed in and get you even more dividends back on the back end. It's like a reoccurring cycle, basically, of investment. And that's doing it by itself. You don't need to manage that as a student.
Yeah, that's hands off.
Yeah, that's really hands off. That's really passive. That's like a really simple way to invest and like get your money to actually really work for you.
Yeah. And then another thing, because I do a little bit of like those smaller scale investments, where they're paying me dividends, and I have like recurring dividends already set up. But I think another helpful thing to kind of open this conversation up a little bit more is, can you kind of explain what is literally happening when I take my $10 and I put it in, let's say, Apple? What is Apple doing with my $10? What is the transaction that's going on there?
Right. So every company is very different, right? Like, Apple could be putting your product, like your $10, into the core business that they need to fund whatever projects they may be, like a new iPhone or a new AirPod project, or whatever products a company makes is where your stock equity could be going. It could also be going to just general like operations of the company too. Like, we as investors, our money could be going to the operational back end of a company, or it could be going to the front end and really like supporting, like having actual cash up front to go towards the company and letting it grow. We are the investors that are investing our money to see the company grow.
Right.
So realistically, you want that front end like support. You want your money to be going towards the front end. Like, I would want Apple, if I was investing into Apple, to make a higher quality phone that would reduce the amount of interest in other competitors like Google or Samsung.
Right.
Like, I would want them to be really honing in on how well their AirPod products work, like, or like the condition of like how quickly they get their phones out. Like, it could go to either end, right? That's where your money's going. That's where your $10 is going. It's going to the company, like, procedures. It's going towards the product. It's going towards just the company overall. And that really comes down to, on an individual level, how well do you know the company that you're investing into?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you cannot just be investing into anything. That's why, like, when it comes down to investment, it's really good to research and really understand, what am I putting my money into? Because at the end of the day, I could tell you whatever kind of stocks you want to invest into, but if those don't align with how you want your money to work for you, it doesn't matter.
Exactly. And that's why I really asked the question, just to dovetail off of what you just said with the whole make your money work for you, because I don't think a lot of people understand what the money is actually doing when it goes into a company. So I love that you were able to kind of break that down from the front end and also on the back end of like more operational things like that. But kind of transition into the next question. And we actually covered it. It was just talking about the general concept of investing in the stock market. But I guess a way to pivot from that is to talk about these prices of the individual stocks themselves. Could you maybe give a little insight into how stocks are evaluated on an individual basis? Because, you can see that one day, you put your money in at a stock and then you might check it the next day and your stock might have went down a little bit, saw that you lost a little bit of money because the stock is valuated differently. or you might come back and you gain some money and the stock is valuated more. So could you talk to that process and how that whole thing works?
Yeah, of course. So like let's break it down, right? So we have supply and demand. The concept of supply and demand for the stocks is to that point, right? Driving your price up. Like you have a few dollars worth more in that stock tomorrow or today because there's more demand for that stock. So Apple could be sitting at 180, 185, right? And you make a few dollars on that and you're like, oh, okay, like it's going up. Like this means it's worth more. That's because there's more demand for that stock. Like very like simply put, there is more demand for it. And also the overall markets, if you look at the indices, so we're talking the S&P 500, the Dow Jones, and the NASDAQ.
Okay.
When these three main indices are moving upwards, the overall market is in a bullish or like good health consensus. So people are expecting it to go upwards because the overall markets themselves are also up and vice versa. So if those three indices are down, it's not a guarantee because some stocks don't always go down with those markets, but usually they tend to follow those three main indices. So if we're seeing a like negative percentage day on those three indices, your stock could be down a few dollars on that day. But it's really up to you on how long you want to hold that stock and your risk tolerance.
Yes.
If it drops a few dollars, is that going to be enough for you to bail out of a 3 to 5 year investment? It really depends on your time frame. It depends on how long you want to hold the stock, how much you're willing to risk of your own money, and also your expectations yourself. How high are you thinking the stock is really going to go? And how long is it going to take to get to that point?
Yeah, that's a very, I think, fundamental thing that people need to understand in terms of like risk and looking at the numbers that your stock is performing at, because some people might see that, oh, this stock went down and immediately like, oh, I should have never did this, big mistake. And like you kind of talked about earlier, that plays a huge role in the psychology of a person if they see that they put money in something and it went down. But I just love that you broke that down, because that's something that a lot of people, I feel like that's stopping them from getting into it, the possibility of something fluctuating so heavily. But that was a great answer for that.
That's the volatility and that's the risk at the end of the day when you're choosing to invest into markets that move very frequently throughout the days. I mean, we just saw new highs today in a lot of the indices. We're touching on the $5,000 price for the S&P 500, which hasn't happened, period. We're reaching quite literal new record highs on the day. So we're in a bullish market, but it's on you as an investor to think also, is this the right time for me to invest? That's another thing too, is the market in the right kind of season for me? Like, is this a good condition for me to get into? Do I want to get in at all-time highs?
Yeah.
Or do I want to wait for these stocks to come down when there's sell-off? Sell-off is a part of that supply and demand chain that makes the markets come down too, because if people are selling their stocks at a higher price and it comes down, it's not going to be worth the same amount anymore. So people buy it when it's coming down in a bearish market. Some people buy it in a bullish market because they think it's going to go even higher. It really depends on how much you yourself really think the markets will go. And this can get into a whole other thing, but it's based on a lot of global like factors, global parts like our politics, like bills that are getting passed, laws that are getting passed, the political climate of the world that we're living in, like that also plays a role in the market as well.
Yeah.
And some people like to play off of those global climate, like political like things that are going on in the world right now, because you can invest your money into anything that's on the public market.
Yeah, defense companies and things like that.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, defense companies are very big right now because that's where a lot of people are placing their money.
Yeah, we were actually in finance this morning, and our professor Kathy was like, me and Senia hadn't like picked our like company for our evaluation project yet, and she was like, "Are you interested in like defense?" And before that, she was like, "What about Coca-Cola?" And I was like, "No, I don't drink like added sugar like beverages." And then she was like, "What about defense?" And I was like, "No, I'm anti-imperialist." And she was like, "What about alcohol?" I was like, "I don't drink." It was just like we were just going back and forth. That was pretty funny, but just like
that's cool.
Understanding all the different, like you said, like anything that's publicly traded, it really could be something that you could put your money in and see it grow. I'm a college student. I have a job. What should I be investing my money into?
Your savings. You should be investing your money into having long-term savings before you even invest, because we're in college. How many, like, you got to think about it, right? Majority of Americans don't even have $500 in their savings. How are you investing if you don't have any emergency funds for your day-to-day expenses? You should be saving your money and then invest. And Also, it comes down to what you want to invest in. You can invest into yourself, or you can invest into other people, or you can do both. They're not mutually exclusive. I think it depends on really your individual like self, like what goals you have and like what you're looking to do with your money. Because you can invest in yourself if you have the idea, but let's just say you don't, right? If you're just looking to invest into others, like you could do some stocks, you could do some bonds, you can do CDs, which are like on your bank. They could be on your bank mobile app. You can get that today, really, if you want to.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different things you can invest into. And I think, honestly, like as college students, get your savings up first before you really start getting your money to work for you.
Yeah.
IRAs, like individual and retirement accounts that you can own yourself. Those are the ones that you could really put your money into and get it to start building until you're 59 and a half, I believe. And then you can use that money that's already taxed. It's tax free.
Yeah. So then when you withdraw, you don't have to pay taxes on it.
Exactly. So that's real long-term investment money. But when it comes to, say, 401ks are long-term, they're a good long-term like retirement fund. But unless you're going to be in a job where they're offering that for you, it's really not something to consider. What I would consider is a Roth IRA, because that you can own as soon as you turn 18. It's managed by you and also tax free. Like they tax it on the go. Your 401k is going to be taxed.
But yeah, so kind of transitioning more so out of this like big financial talk. I'll talk more personal accomplishments and things that you've done. So earlier, we listed that you started some companies. So could you start talking about how did you first start Black Man Entities and then interview for you after that?
Okay, so Black Man Entities, that has some history to it. So it was originally co-founded with myself and the cousin who got me initially into finance. So it was originally supposed to be like both of our thing, but it kind of just, it didn't work out for both of us to do it. So I just started running it, and I based it around financial tutoring for the first phase of the business that I wanted it to be. I wanted to educate people in finance. I wanted to have it be a family sense, like, oh, we're really like here as a collective, like we're growing together, because I myself am still growing in these markets. Like I wanted it to be like very like family based, like you're really part of this family and we're growing together. Yeah. So for the past 2 years, like from 2021 until 2023, I was running the company. I would do the advertising. I would post. I had a website. I posted on the website. I had courses. I'd do course plans. I'd do one-on-ones. And it was working really well when I was in New York, actually, before I even moved here, because I had done a lecture at my high school. I was lecturing like students from freshmen, sophomore, juniors, or seniors, any age, and even staff came through to understand like basic 101 stock investment or just investment in general. Yeah. And that was really fun. I loved doing stuff like that. I love education and I loved educating. What made it die down for me was really coming out here, and I had other things that were my priority. Yeah. And it just kind of outgrew me. I still like teaching people about finance, but when it comes to finance, you really have to be living a certain lifestyle for people to take you seriously. If you are younger, if you are not painting that picture that people view financially successful people to have, like certain traders, like just because you aren't at that level of money doesn't mean that you can't have education that benefits people at the end of the day. Yeah. And that's why I leaned more towards Interview for You. Okay. Interview for You is something that I just had created recently, and it is basically, for now, it's still very new. It's the resume template. It's getting into corporate industry. It's breaking into like fields that doors are very difficult to break into on your own, and getting the building blocks you need to get into that industry. Those industries, the accounting, the finance, the investment banking, the corporate banking, all these like very competitive fields that are difficult to get into. I'm trying to create a resource for people to have as a hub, basically. Yeah. And
it's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful. And that's really like extremely helpful. Like when I tell you, like I saw one of your templates on Instagram, and like I thought I had a good resume template. I had a great mentor my first year, DJ. He gave me like this resume template, and I was like, bro, this is way better than the one I came with. But like I only was able to put like 3 positions on there. Yours had like 5. So I'm like, nah, I gotta steal this one. So no, that is like definitely powerful, especially like at the point where we're at, where like everything is the resume, you know.
Right. It is.
You're always applying to all these different internships and these different opportunities and positions that might require something like that. So to be able to literally put your whole body of work in this very concise and effective form of packaging, for you to be able to just do that and spread it to the people, I think that's a very noble one and powerful tool that you have. So I definitely commend you on those. Like those are two, even like, Black man entities. I mean, it's like not still running, but still, even I feel like you're doing Black man entities right now by, talking, and like you said, like education. Education is a everyday thing. You know what I'm saying? You're educating right now. So
Right.
it doesn't even have to be formal. So I would say like those are two very like noble companies. And like I said, I want to give you your flowers for those. Those are,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
yeah, those are great. Those are great. So kind of transitioning, I heard you talk about these sectors that are harder to break into.
Mhm.
So I want to ask you this question. What philosophy do you follow as a Black man navigating the corporate world in these more
Ooh, that's very
gate-kept
interesting.
industries?
It's very interesting, right? I'm in corporate right now, and I've had such different experiences that I'd say you need to have to understand how to navigate it, right? Always be loud, always just be yourself. I'm very loud when I walk into a room in those types of settings, no matter what position I'm in. It doesn't matter if you're an intern, it doesn't matter if you're an associate. I feel if you don't lead with being you, you're going to hinder yourself in that job and it might not work out for you. I've had multiple different experiences in corporate, some better than others. Currently, it's much better than previously I've had.
Good
But
to hear that.
being myself at a previous place was very difficult because it just felt like I had to be somebody who I wasn't. And a lot of these companies preach diversity, equity, and inclusion. They preach being yourself. But when you actually get into those rooms, like, it's just this voice in the back of your head as like a Black man in these rooms that's just, you can't do that. You have to act a certain way. I need to code switch in a room when I'm talking to my coworkers. I need to just present myself a little toned down, and I don't want to do that. I'm trying to tone up. We need
Right.
to tone up in the room. We need to be loud.
Yes.
And I love that, like,
Take
I
up
can-
space.
Yeah, exactly. You're taking up space in the room and you're still learning.
Exactly.
Just because I'm taking up space doesn't mean that I'm going to be ignorant to not learning things or
Of course.
not listen to people who have had experience in this field that I have no knowledge of. Like, this is why I do it. I do it to understand the field, right?
Right.
That's the whole point of being there. If you're not learning, then you're not going to be earning at the end of the day.
I like that. I like that.
We're all in the learning phase right now. So it's about understanding how to learn so you can earn that position, you can earn that salary, you can earn whatever it is you want to earn in life. And navigating it as a Black man is just very different because you have different expectations. And I'd also like to say, once you get the experience, hold yourself to that higher standard. Now that it's a part of your history, you can ask for more. You can ask for that respect that you want. I can ask for this respect that I want because I've worked in a Big Four company. I've worked in a very highly mid-sized firm. I can ask for that respect in the room now. But when you're first walking in, it feels like you have to tone it down and just be reserved and do what you need to do when you're in the role. And it can be hard. It mentally can be difficult, especially when you're in a new place and you don't know anybody.
Yeah.
And to that point, a lot of these firms, you'll meet a lot of Black people at their headquarter events, but when it comes to the area that you're in, it really depends. Because I will say that there are not a lot of Black folks in these offices, and that can be demographically based. But if you're saying one thing and I'm seeing another thing,
Right.
isn't that interesting, right?
Very, very. And even adding in another layer to this is when you kind of get through that door, I feel like you have a certain duty to make sure that door stays open for more people to come through it that look like you, that come from these same situations. Like you said, like acquiring knowledge through learning also gives you this responsibility to use that knowledge to pass it to the next person. Each one teach one. We're talking about, we're trying to step into an era of tearing down these gates that are being gate kept, and starting to break into these industries. So I want to say that I appreciate you for, even shedding some insight onto what it's like navigating the corporate world for all those people out there who might have thoughts of maybe going into corporate or things like that. This man literally, like you said, he's been at a Big Four firm. He's been there. So appreciate you for spreading that knowledge with us. And kind of coming down to the home stretch right here. I know that, summertime is a big time for internships. So what is your best piece of advice for securing that summer internship?
Balancing your personality with professionalism from every step of the way. So from when the recruiters reach out to you and how you present yourself in emails, to the interview process, to how you're speaking to those you're interviewing with, being yourself, but also keeping in mind the corporate professionalism until you get into that room, right? So showing up on time, the way you dress, the way that I dress is very big. A lot of people always comment on the way that I dress, and they're always like, oh, you're always so dressed up. I just so happen to like business fashion, but really, if I wasn't dressed like this and I didn't like it, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
But, and a lot of people don't do that. But I think that when you're applying for these internships, just in general, if you keep that professionalism along with your personality, because you're still building your professionalism, I'm still building my professionalism, what companies deem as professionalism, it can be different in every company because every company has a different culture.
Right.
That's why it's good to apply to a company that fits those characteristics that you have yourself.
Right.
And if you're able to do that, getting these internships is really going to be easy. I'd say doing that, and also just, especially for finance and accounting, just keep everything formatted. You want to be neat. You want to be clean in how you, like, not clean in the sense of presenting yourself, but presenting yourself in every way, your cover letter, your resume, everything. And then when you walk into that room, you just got to let them know and be loud in that room.
Yeah. And then this is kind of like a little bonus to put onto that. So, we put in our great resume that we got from Interview for You,
Yes,
that the template that we used, and, we make it through the door and we have a interview scheduled. What would be some tips for interviews and the whole interview process?
Oh, yes. Okay. So some tips I would say is to definitely research the company and the values that they have. And also with that, when you research the company, look at the role description and look at those key words that they look for in the characteristics that they want in a person. And when you're answering those questions, to incorporate those words into your answer and always, always bring it back to the company. So for example, if I'm asked, how do I feel that I would grow in the next 5 years with the company? I feel as though like the company's firm's values at such and such will benefit me in these next 5 years to become the best version of myself. Something along those lines, right? You want to fit those two things in, and also show up on time.
Of course.
Please show up on time.
Please
show up on time. Do not show up late because you are new.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, show up on time. And I'd also say to reach out to your recruiter. In a lot of these companies, the recruiter is your first point of contact throughout your whole internship that I've like experienced with a lot of these companies. Your recruiter's with you along the whole entire route. They're your first point of contact. You want to be good with the recruiter, and it also makes you a little bit more noticeable. You're treating the recruiter like they're an actual person,
right? Because
they are actual people. They're going through thousands of resumes. They're sending out candidate information on a day-to-day basis. If you treat them like a person, you're already standing out from more than a majority of the crowd.
Yeah, because I can imagine people probably tend to treat them as more of this robotic person that they have to move around and stay in good graces just because they simply want a job.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a great point. I never even really thought about that. Just building that personal connection with the person who was getting you in the door to begin with.
Exactly.
So, some great tips, man. That's some great. So we are officially at the end of our questions, but I feel like you have a wealth of knowledge. So if there is anything that you feel like hasn't been spoken on right now that you want to maybe talk to the people about, I give you the mic. Well, you already had it, but
yeah. Widen your scope. Like a lot of us, we have like goals in mind, but if you're very dead set on that goal and you don't see the other ways to pivot to getting to that goal, you could be missing out on like an easier way. Work smarter, not harder, basically, is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
If you want to roll with Nike or you want to roll with like the Big Four, for example, and they're rejecting your resume or they're rejecting your interview, maybe you need to take a step back and replan and reorganize. Like maybe I should work with a mid-sized firm. Maybe I should work with a smaller shoe company in order to get the experience or just get the knowledge I need to make me more credible, to make me be a stronger candidate or just stronger overall. And you are still getting those experiences, and you might like those experiences more than what you imagined would be with those ideal jobs or that ideal dream or building that ideal business. Like there's so many different ways you can go about doing things if you just widen your scope.
Yeah. Some great advice right there. I appreciate that one. And being able to like I said, like pivot and things like that, like that's a powerful tool. I think that takes a great degree of creativity to think about all these different ways. Like you said, there's a million ways to get to it. It's not one locked in answer. So to widen that scope, definitely something that people should be taking away. But I'm just trying. What are some things that was coming for you explicitly as a Black man? What are some things that have really made you feel, I guess other or things that might be popping up for other people or might pop up for people in the future that you might, tell them to heed caution to?
Yes. So the way that you speak and the way that you say things, others might perceive it in a different way in a corporate setting when you're in a new team. I had that experience once, and I still to this day have no idea what was said, but it was basically just something that was brought up to the person who was my point of contact at the time, and they were telling me, and they were saying, "Oh, I said something that was really just not respectful," and I was really I was a little baffled. I was like, this person also could have came to me and said, the way that you said this, if there was something said, I didn't like the way that was said, and we could have had a conversation.
Right.
This is another thing that is with corporate, and I would say is very important to keep in mind, is that there's always conversations going on about just about anything that you do, from a day-to-day basis, and just how you work with others, and also just how you are in general.
Right.
These are all things that are always being monitored at all times, and it doesn't matter who's in that room. Always just know that somebody is probably going to talk about you, and this can be to your advantage or disadvantage. It really does depend on how you are as a person. But even the small things, especially with very competitive firms where they can easily replace you, I would say it's very important to just watch your surroundings and watch what you say, watch how you do your work. Do always try and ask questions. People say always ask questions, and I think that's the standard now, but you'd be surprised how many people say ask questions and they actually really don't ask questions about what they do. Because when you're coming into that door, you don't know anything that's past that door.
That's true.
If you aren't asking any questions, they're just thinking you're just here along for the ride.
Yeah.
So always ask questions. Always just bring your best to the table, because there are other people. At the end of the day, these are competitive firms. There are always going to be other competitive candidates that are also looking to be where you're at, to be honest.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just the truth.
Yeah.
But
that's a
keeping
race
that in
out here.
mind, it's important. If you keep that in mind, honestly, you'll do good. And bring your A game. Do whatever tasks you need to do. Do your back-end tasks. A lot of people don't know there's a lot of back-end tasks to internships. You have a lot of onboarding tasks. You have a lot of learning tasks you need to do. These are all really important tasks, because every time you're getting those notifications, it's late, I'm guarantee you either your recruiter or somebody is going to know that you're not completing those tasks on time.
Right.
And that just overall can lead to your opportunity on whether or not you get that return offer, or you're getting that full-time job, or just any of those things, really.
That actually does bring me to, thank you for that first, but that actually does bring me to another question though. Speaking about more so time management, what would be some of those, because I think you're in a very interesting spot where you're so young, but you're also in these corporate spaces. What would be some, I guess, tips from transitioning from time management as a student to time management as an employee? What would be your biggest tips and takeaways from that whole transition?
I would say to get a journal or use Google Docs, because you need to write down everything you have going on, all the meetings during the times that you're supposed to be working and outside those hours, because sometimes there's social events and they could be very good for you to go to, meeting other people that are at other offices or doing other things that maybe you'll find more interesting than the work you're doing now. Meeting those people is very good. And also those social events are really fun sometimes.
Yeah.
They could be really engaging and it's really cool. So building that schedule with your work, building that schedule with your classes, if you're taking classes, to make sure that those classes don't overlap. Don't overlap your corporate life with student life to the point where you can't balance both. Online asynchronous classes or online classes that are at a very specific time, because some places will let you block out your schedule because they know we're students. They understand that we're still students at the end of the day. So being very communicative about balancing your life as a student and corporate worker is very important to really succeed. Because I will say I struggled with that in my first internship, and it's been so much better now because I'm able to communicate. Oh, I have these things going on. I have club from this time to this time, or I need to block out my schedule for this hour and a half during the day. Some places are a lot more lenient than others, and I think that's just down to the research. You got to look and see what places are going to be that lenient with you.
Yeah. Great knowledge, because I think that's what gets a lot of people caught up, really, time management, being able to, stay on top of all these tasks that are coming in by the boatload, even if you're just looking, at school, and then now you got a job, and now, you got these certain deliverables from your boss now, and, you forgetting the due dates, and now it ain't going to be no grade book error. It's going to be that paycheck, or it might be that the job, so it's getting big out here. So yeah. Yeah, really just thinking about work-life balance now. What are some of those ways that you keep yourself grounded as Darius the person, even managing all these different things that you got going on?
So I love jujitsu. I still go like 3 times a week. That's like my comfort sport, and it just lets me relax. I love the gym. I love art and I love fashion. I love just drawing and just being able to go into that space and just relax. It's honestly really nice. Those are a couple of things I really like to do, like physical activity, art. Sometimes I like going shopping for different types of clothes, different together different types of outfits. That's really fun for me.
Yeah.
So those are just like some things I like to do. I love cooking. Cooking's really fun. And I like cooking for friends too, like some home cooked mac and cheese, some barbecue wings. Like
Yeah.
I'll make some good food. So those are like some ways I like to decompress and just like take a step back away from like a lot of like tasks because we're still students, we're very busy, and sometimes you can get caught up in that busyness that you don't take that time you need for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah,
You gotta take that time.
Self-time is essential. You will literally go crazy out here.
That's why getting a journal or calendar is really important.
Yeah.
Because you can get that time in through that way. I fit the time that I want to draw or do my physical activity in my journal because I know I need it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. And yeah, my question escaped my mind. Actually, no, it didn't. So, what are 3 goals that you have for the next 10 years?
Interesting. Well, that's very interesting. I'd like to start a center, like not just a finance center, just like an education center in business. All things business, like finance, resume, career, professional, like center that's really just there to help people and build that. I really like that idea. I would love to do that. I'd also like to go to grad school and like I want to be a professor.
Okay.
I want to teach.
Yeah.
Basically
I can see
teaching,
it. I can see it.
Anything teaching, I'd love to do. Like I'd love to do that to start off in a career. That'd be really fun actually. And taking all those experiences, right, that corporate life and all those like different types of places that I've been so far and I'm going, taking all those experiences and like giving it back in the classroom with the material would be so fun. I'd love to do that. And another goal I'd say is I like to travel, be able to travel and just experience a lot more of the world.
Yeah.
And outside of those 3 things, that's the real long term.
Nice. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and, as the old church ladies do, extend my right arm to those goals that they come true. Give you some strength, some perseverance power behind those goals. Sound like righteous goals. Sound like very attainable goals as well. And with that, Darius.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Like, you were literally like, I feel like in terms of people who have no type of like financial knowledge, like this is a good way for them to get into the door. So literally just hear like 2 people talking about it, like not a YouTube video, even though it's gonna be on YouTube, but like people genuinely just like discussing it, breaking it down in like layman's terms and things like that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love doing this work. Like it's been with me for a couple of years now. Like I love it. It's one thing that I really do enjoy.
Yeah, and you're doing content now, right? So I want you to look over there and tell people where they can see your content.
Yeah, so you can find my content at Darius Moore _ on Instagram. And I'll also be posting on YouTube as well at Darius Moore. So you can check me out basically at any social platform that has my name in it.
All right. You guys heard it here. That was another episode of Truth to Power. Thanks for listening.